there, everybody. I have decided to answer some of the questions that you have sent in. I haven't looked at them yet, so this will be a surprise for both of us. What is so terrible about loneliness is that it's creating so much of the suffering that you're seeing in your individual life and on a societal level today. I mean, with loneliness, with no sense of connection, you actually don't have your primary need met. And when any being doesn't have their primary need met, you see a decline in health, you see a decline in satisfaction with life. So, and by the way, most of the people that you're watching today who are dealing with addictions, who are dealing with suicide, who are dealing with failed relationship, the thing that's actually causing that is a state of loneliness, a sense of disconnection. And what I'm putting forth in this book is that this actually goes far beyond an individual human. This is a societal thing, because loneliness is actually at the heart of things like war. It's at the heart of things like crime. Here's why. For me to be able to drop a bomb on someone else, I have to see them as other than me. I have to perceive myself to be separated from or disconnected from them. That's the only way I can commit that crime against them. So, for there to be war present, there has to be a sense of separation, therefore loneliness present. And the same thing goes for things like, I have a terrible relationship. I'm in a relationship, but there's emotional distance between me and my partner. That failed relationship or divorce is caused by that sensation of loneliness. Now, every crime that's ever been committed against somebody is committed from this type of a space. I have to consider you other than me and perceive disconnection instead of a connection with you in order for me to commit a crime, like even if it's stealing something. So your jails are full based on loneliness. That's what's so wrong with loneliness. And no, social media is not enough of a connection. In fact, even though it has the capacity to unite us with people we would never meet with before, the reality is most of us aren't meeting with these people. Most of us are just using this as a way to avoid intimacy, actually, because we can always hide behind our computer screen. We don't have to put as much skin into the game of the relationship, and we're not really developing genuine intimacy with people when we're using our social media accounts. Most of us, by the way, when we're engaged in social media, are putting a false facade forth to the world. So we're actually interacting with everybody on the other side of the screen through this false persona that we've built up. I mean, look through your Instagram account. Do you have pictures in there of the day you broke down? Do you have pictures in there of the day you broke up with your boyfriend? Do you have pictures in there of the day that you lost your mom? I mean, are you frowning in them? Are you puking in some of them? No, most of us, we're just putting forth whatever foot we feel like is going to get us received in the world. That is not intimacy, and that is not connection. That's us getting some secondary need of approval, not even for what's real. And all of us know it. So down deep, we may be putting this foot forward, but we know it's not the genuine truth of who we are, so we're not in real relationships with each other. Loneliness is not as simple as just going into it, no. It's important to sit with the sensation of loneliness, to even admit that it's an issue for you in the first place, but when you go into things, what should happen is that you gain insights about what action steps to take. Most of us, when we're in the space where we feel like just going into something is all it's going to take to get over something, we have cut ourselves off from the fact that we are physical beings. We've cut ourselves off from the fact that we are meant to use our free will based on the awareness we gain by going into something to take action steps in our life to actually change our life here on planet Earth. So even if you did go into your loneliness, you would arise with the awareness that you really need to be in connection with other people. So then you'd take action to actually go connect with those people. You'd reach out to them. You'd start seeing into people, feeling into people. You'd start trying to understand people. You'd probably move into closer proximity physically with people if you were to just go into it. So no, it's more than just going into the emotion of loneliness. Also, so many of us that come to this idea that if you just go into something, everything's done, we're actually in complete avoidance mode. We're going into something so as to get away from something. That's a bit of an oxymoron, don't you think? It actually took me 3 years to develop the book, but 3 months only to write the book. And it was like an over 500-page manuscript when I got done. I decided to write this book because, quite frankly, I was miserably lonely. And that's a little bit of an understatement. I was the kind of person who was so lonely I tried to commit suicide. I did not have connection with my family growing up. I didn't really feel connected to, anybody in the society. I had no friends. I was so damn isolated that I could hardly breathe. But what loneliness does is it convinces you that you're the only one that's in it. So I was looking around at other people instead of seeing everyone who was lonely. No, I couldn't be a match to that. When you're lonely, all you see, which is all that I saw, which is other people that fit into places. Oh, they belong over here. They have a good relationship. They have connection. I seem to be the only one that didn't. So I got out of my childhood experience. I started to create an intentional community. And based on living in that community and developing deeper levels of intimacy with people, I was able to really decrease my sensations of loneliness. It wasn't until later when I started traveling around for this career that I'm in today, when I started meeting people from all walks of life, from all cultures, from every continent, and everybody said the same thing. It didn't matter whether these people were wallflowers and introverts or people who were in the front of your classroom type of personality types, popular, lots of people around them. If everybody's telling me the same thing, which is that they feel the sensation of loneliness, there must be way more here to loneliness than meets the eye. So I started to see it was like more than a just teal problem. It was like an epidemic problem. And when I really saw, the sort of bigger implication for that in the world, in that perception of isolation and separation is what's backing addictions, it's what's backing crimes, it's what's backing war. I realized this is not just an epidemic issue at like an individual level, but it is also an epidemic issue at a societal level. And it was at that point that I was like, I got to figure this out. So I did what I always do, and I have to figure something out, which is to dive into it so deep that I lose myself in it like a nutty professor. And what I intuitively felt like is that the right path to go down for the self-exploration and universal exploration was the path of shamanism. So what I did was I went down to the jungles of Costa Rica, and I, for basically a 3-year period, dove into this concept of loneliness. I figured out what created it. I figured out basically the makeup of it, which is why this book was ultimately named The Anatomy of Loneliness, and also what to replace that anatomy with when we take down these central pillars that create loneliness, so that we can create lasting connection with other people. What happened there is that when I was going through this incredible, intense process of journey work and down the path of shamanism, I had this notepad. It was lined pieces of paper. I would shred them. I mean, they were a complete mess. I would just take out a pen and in sort of chicken scratch, put down any type of idea or like insight that I had come to or awareness that I had around loneliness. So these pages, which were like singed with Palo Santo ash, and some of them had puke on them, some had tears on them, some had been dunked in water. I mean, they were a mess. But I got home with this pile of papers, which I then looked through and organized, took 3 months organizing and creating, basically turning into what is now known as the Anatomy of Loneliness. What this book covers is the 3 pillars of loneliness. This is basically looking at the skeleton which keeps loneliness in place. By knowing those pillars, you now have the answer for the opposite. So what I'm putting forth is what these pillars are, exactly what creates them. I mean, I dissect these concepts so that you will understand them to within an inch of their life. So there will be no way to step out of the awareness of them. Obviously, when you're aware of something, you choose different paths. Your free will now can engage in the process of not reinforcing those pillars. I also, though, give very practical solutions for how to topple those pillars. And after we've toppled those pillars, the second half of the book is how to actually create long-lasting connection. So it's what do we replace these pillars with? What are we doing instead? So obviously, reading that gives you the answer to your relationships and the answer for how to get out of this horrible sense of loneliness. This book will transform your relationship with your children, because loneliness it's something that's across all relationships. This is not something that just applies to finding a romantic relationship or friendships or whatever. And what we need in order to, say, develop a long-lasting connection with children is actually the same as what we would need to build a long-lasting relationship with a partner. And that's what most of us don't get, because when I say intimacy, which is actually the primary ingredient for connection, most people are thinking sex. But it's this process of really seeing into, feeling into, listening to, and coming to completely understand or become an expert on somebody else. If you're doing this with your children, the type of relationship you will have with your kid is the type of relationship that no one has with their parents. It's what everybody wishes they had but can't get. Because to be quite honest, most of us are so stuck in our own little perceptual reality that we aren't really able to accommodate another person's reality. Once we can do that with our children, not only does our parenting just become absolutely amazing, but these children will want to be connected with you. They're not going to come home for Thanksgiving out of guilt. They'll come home because they want to feel that closeness with you. I would recommend this book in half a second to somebody with depression and anxiety. So many of these emotional states we have because we don't have connection, but we don't recognize that as our primary need. Most of us don't recognize that we feel anxiety because we don't feel close to anybody. It's just weird because that anxiety kind of goes away when we're in a close relationship with someone. In that moment, we're getting our need met, but we don't even notice. So yes, I would absolutely suggest this to people with depression and anxiety and every other illness, mental or otherwise, under the sun. If the purpose of your life was to truly experience loneliness, then you wouldn't be caused pain by it. Your expansion path is always going to be in the direction of what feels better. So let's say that you come into this life and you feel lonely. If that's bothering you, your expansion path is absolutely to step into a space of connection instead of loneliness, which is the overall thing that is needed at this time in our reality. So for some of you, if you're meant to experience loneliness, it is temporarily so as to genuinely understand connection. This universe is not benefiting by the maintaining of loneliness. It already understands separation. What it is needing is for people to use their free will to consciously choose back into a state of oneness and connection. I recommend this book for absolutely everybody because when you're thinking about loneliness, you're looking at a spectrum, like most things. Some people are all the way over on this level of isolation where they're ready to take heroin or to kill themselves. And in other scenarios, people are all the way over on this side of the scale where they don't really hate it. They would probably like to spend more time with people. They probably want a little bit closer relationships with people in their life, but it's not like they're suffering. This book catches everyone on the spectrum. And this is what I like to do in my career in general. I mean, you like to know this just for fun's sake. I'm the kind of person who likes to go at a problem from the deepest levels that I can possibly get at, knowing that anything that is north of that is going to be caught and actually shifted that fast. I mean, if I can look at somebody who's suffering from these deep existential loneliness, conundrums where they're on suicide's door, if I can get that person to shift, anybody who has any type of loneliness will shift instantaneously. This book doesn't directly address the fear of meeting new people. What it addresses is the fear of intimacy, which is really what this fear is about. If we have this issue, what we're dealing with is actually deep levels of shame. And often, traumas, obviously, that made it so that we were terrified of stepping into connection with people. It does address that. So if you're dealing with this terror of meeting new people, then you're dealing with shame. And I have an entire section of the book dedicated to shame and what to do about it. I have written this book specifically to tailor to an audience that is mainstream. The one chapter of it that is the most difficult for people who haven't introduced themselves to spirituality before is the first chapter, which is on separation, because it takes into account collective consciousness, which is what most people have been calling God. We don't need to use that word if it's a trigger word for some people. You don't have to be spiritual to understand the concepts in this book because this is such an epidemic social issue. I have written it specifically to tailor to people who don't fit into that one type of category. And I've removed the highly esoteric processes that were first in this book and made them actually a part of a second booklet that's called the connection process. So if you're into that esoteric stuff, you can look at that. But I can guarantee you that you don't have to have spiritual concepts already understood before you sit down and read this book. And you don't even have to consider yourself a spiritual person. You have to consider the concepts that I'm putting forth in a way that I'm hoping that all people from all walks of life can grasp.